Most people think death is a moment, a switch that flips, a light that goes out. 1 second you exist and the next second you don't. That is not what happens. Death is not a moment. Death is a cascade, a precise, ordered sequence of biological events that begins before your heart stops and continues long after anyone in the room would say you're gone. Because understanding how something ends is the only way to truly understand what it was. This is what happens to your body. 1 second at a time. Let's say your heart stops, not gradually, suddenly the way it happens in cardiac arrest. In that first second, almost nothing visible changes. The heart is a pump. Its entire job is to move oxygen-carrying blood through roughly 60,000 miles of blood vessels. When it stops, that delivery system halts instantaneously. Blood pressure drops to zero, not gradually, instantly. The pressure that was pushing blood through every vessel in your body gone in 1 second flat, and your blood, which was moving, stops. It pools. Gravity takes over from your heart. Now here's the first thing that surprises people. Your brain is still on. In that first second, your neurons are still firing. Your consciousness, if you had it before, is still running. This is because the brain doesn't run on blood that's in transit. It runs on the oxygen already dissolved in the blood inside it. That supply is finite, and it begins depleting, which means for a brief window, your brain continues to function after your heart has stopped. Some studies suggest it may actually spike in activity in those final seconds. You're gone from the outside before you're gone from the inside. Between 8 and 10 seconds after the heart stops, you lose consciousness. The brain consumes more oxygen than any other organ, about 20% of everything your body uses, despite being only 2% of your body weight. When the supply cuts off, it starts failing fast. At the 8 to 10 second mark, the oxygen runs out. Neurons can no longer fire reliably. Consciousness collapses. You go dark. This is the clinical moment most people think of as death, but your body doesn't know that yet. Between 2 and 4 minutes, the brain begins to suffer ischemic injury. This is the window paramedics are working against. The goal isn't to restart your heart. The goal is to push oxygenated blood into your brain. At around 4 to 6 minutes, brain cells begin dying, not all at once. In regions, the areas that control higher functions go first: memory, personality, language. The deeper, more primitive structures that regulate breathing and heart rhythm hold on longer. The heart can be restarted. The brain cannot be rebuilt. And somewhere in this window, the process crosses from clinical death into biological death. The difference matters. Clinical death is reversible. Biological death is not. And yet, even at this point, your body is full of cells that have received no notification. Your cells are not receiving orders from a central command. There is no memo that goes out when the heart stops. Each cell in your body is running its own independent biological process. When blood flow stops, these cells don't instantly die. They keep working. They burn through whatever oxygen and glucose is left in their immediate environment. And when that runs out, they switch strategies. They shift to anaerobic metabolism, a backup system that doesn't need oxygen, and they keep going. Different cells have different reserves, different tolerances. Heart muscle cells can survive for around 30 minutes after blood flow stops. Kidney cells around 30 minutes to an hour. Skin cells can remain viable for up to 24 hours. Some cells in bone marrow have been harvested and successfully used more than 24 hours after death. Your skin cells are alive right now, on a body that medicine declared dead hours ago. This is not metaphor, this is the biology. Death does not sweep through your body at once. It moves through it in a wave, organ by organ, tissue by tissue, cell by cell, each one holding on for exactly as long as it can with what it has left. There is a reason surgeons can harvest organs for transplant hours after cardiac death. The organs are still alive, they are waiting, running on reserves, doing what cells do, which is stay alive for as long as they physically can. Your body's default state is not death, it is life. Now, something else begins. Something most people have heard of, but almost no one understands correctly. Rigor mortis. Most people think rigor mortis is caused by muscles contracting after death. That's partly right, but the reason they contract is the part nobody explains. Muscle movement, any movement, requires a molecule called ATP. When a muscle fiber contracts, it uses ATP to do so. And crucially, when a muscle fiber releases, when it relaxes, it also requires ATP to let go. When your cells stop producing ATP, your muscles can no longer release. Every muscle in your body locks in its last contracted state and cannot let go. This typically begins 2 to 6 hours after death, starting in the smaller muscles, the face and jaw, and spreading downward. It reaches full stiffness between 12 and 24 hours after death, and then it reverses. Not because the muscles relax, but because the proteins inside the muscle fibers begin to break down. The rigid protein structures that were locked in place start to decompose. The stiffness dissolves not through release, but through disintegration. By 48 to 72 hours after death, rigor mortis is gone. Days after death, a different process takes over. Your gut contains approximately 38 trillion bacteria. For your entire life, your immune system held them in check. When your immune system goes offline, that containment ends. The bacteria begin to spread. They move through the walls of the intestine into the abdominal cavity. They spread upward, downward, outward, through the tissues. This process is called putrefaction, and the bacteria doing it are not invaders. They are your own gut bacteria. The microbes that spent your entire life helping you digest food are now using the same chemical tools to digest you. The gases they produce accumulate in the body cavities. The skin discolors as hemoglobin breaks down. Enzymes inside your own cells, which spent your whole life carefully regulated, are now released without restraint. This is called autolysis. Self-digestion, your cells digest themselves. The boundary between you and the environment begins to dissolve. Literally, you're not disappearing, you're dispersing. The molecules that were inside you you begin returning to the soil, to the air, to the water table. Of everything in the human body, one type of tissue survives the longest after death: bone. The mineral matrix of bone can persist for thousands of years under the right conditions. Archaeologists recover bones from human remains, tens of thousands of years old, and extract information from them that tells us what those people ate, where they traveled, what diseases they carried. But even bone eventually goes. Collagen, the protein framework that gives bone its flexibility, degrades over centuries. DNA, the last coded record of who you were, survives in fragments inside bone and teeth. Under ideal conditions, DNA has been recovered from remains over 400,000 years old. But it degrades. Cosmic radiation breaks the strands. Bacterial enzymes cleave the sequences. Each 1,000 years less remains. Eventually, not tomorrow, not in a century, the last molecular record of your specific biological identity is gone. But by then, the atoms that made you have been incorporated into soil, absorbed by plants, consumed by animals. Every atom in your body has been part of stars, of ancient oceans, of other living things long before it was part of you. And after you, it will be part of something else. Here's what the cascade of death actually tells us. It tells us that life is not a state. It is a process, a continuous, energy-demanding, moment-to-moment act of maintenance. Your body performs this against entropy, against the universe's tendency toward disorder. For every second you're alive, the moment that process stops being maintained, entropy resumes, not violently, methodically, patiently, in exactly the order physics and chemistry dictate. Your gut bacteria don't mourn you. Your cells don't give up. They simply do what biology does. You're not a thing that exists. You are a thing that is constantly being made. Every second, every cell, every heartbeat is not evidence that you're alive. It is the act of being alive. And that act, that extraordinary, costly, improbable act is running right now, in every cell of your body, without you having to think about it for even a single second, until one day it stops, and the universe quietly gets back to work.